At 9:40 on a November morning in 1755, the ground didn't just shake, it rewrote philosophy itself. The city was Lisbon, Portugal's capital, a thriving Atlantic hub with around 275,000 souls packed into its hillside streets. It was All Saints' Day, a holy day. Most of the city's population was already inside churches when the first tremor hit, not a warning shake. The initial rupture lasted, by most accounts, somewhere between 3 and 6 minutes. Buildings pancaked. Fires erupted almost immediately. The death toll estimates range from 30,000 to 100,000 people in a single morning. But here's what historians often miss. The earthquake itself wasn't the story. The story was what people did with it, how they explained it, and how that explanation cracked open the entire intellectual foundation of the Enlightenment, the age of reason itself. This is where the real tremor begins. Let me back up. Before November 1st, 1755, there was a dominant idea circulating through European salons and universities. Leibniz had argued, and many brilliant minds agreed, that we live in the best of all possible worlds. God, being all-powerful and all-good, would never permit unnecessary suffering. If suffering existed, it must serve a purpose. It must be rational. It must mean something. Then Lisbon collapsed, and 40,000 to 100,000 people, many of them children, many of them in churches, were crushed or burned to death, for no apparent reason, on a holy day, in a city that was, by the standards of the era, relatively pious and well-governed. The theodicy, the problem of why evil exists if God is good, stopped being an abstract parlor debate. It became urgent. It became personal. A young French philosopher named Voltaire, you've likely heard the name, was living in Berlin when news arrived. He was 61 years old, and he lost it, not metaphorically. He sat down and wrote a long poem called The Lisbon Disaster, and in it, he dismantled the idea that this was a best of all possible worlds. His logic was brutal. If God could prevent suffering and chose not to, what does that say about divine benevolence? This poem, published in 1756, just months after the earthquake, spread across Europe like wildfire. It wasn't just criticism. It was permission. Permission for other thinkers to say what they'd been afraid to say, that the Enlightenment's faith in reason and divine order might be misplaced, that the universe might not be rational at all, that randomness, chaos, suffering, these might just be fundamental features of existence. Jean-Jacques Rousseau, read Voltaire's poem and wrote back. A fierce intellectual duel erupted in letters. Rousseau argued that the earthquake wasn't God's fault. It was ours. We built our cities poorly. We crowded ourselves into vulnerable spaces. We brought this on ourselves through our own poor choices. Nature, he insisted, was innocent. What's remarkable isn't who won that argument. Nobody did. What's remarkable is that this natural disaster forced European intellectuals to choose. Either the world is rational and ordered, and suffering needs explaining away, or suffering is just part of the fabric, and we need new philosophies altogether. That shift, from theodicy to pragmatism, shaped everything that came after. But there's a second tremor to this story, one that rarely makes it into the history books. The earthquake didn't just shake European philosophy, it shook European empires. You see, Lisbon in 1755 wasn't just a city. It was the nerve center of the Portuguese colonial enterprise, the wealthiest port in Europe, the hub through which Brazilian gold flowed into the continent. The Marquês de Pombal, the city's chief minister, faced a choice. Rebuild Lisbon the old way, in the cramped, winding medieval style, or seize the moment and rebuild it rationally. Grid streets, uniform buildings, rational city planning. He chose the latter, and he did it with ruthless efficiency. Lisbon became a blueprint for rational urban design across Europe. But here's the irony, the small one that gets lost. Pombal used the earthquake as cover for something else entirely. He consolidated power. He expelled the Jesuits. He centralized control over colonial trade. The earthquake, in other words, became a tool, a justification for reshaping not just the city, but the entire apparatus of Portuguese colonial power. This matters because Lisbon's reconstruction became a model for colonial cities across the Atlantic. Rio de Janeiro, Salvador, even parts of the Caribbean were influenced by Pombal's rational urbanism. The earthquake, In effect, reshaped the physical layout of European colonialism itself, the way empires built their cities, the way they controlled space and population, are what we have here. And this is what makes 1755 so quietly transformative, is a single natural disaster that did three things simultaneously. It shattered Enlightenment optimism about reason and order. It forced European philosophers to fundamentally rethink their understanding of suffering and meaning. And it gave colonial powers a blueprint for more efficient, more rational control of their territories. The earthquake killed tens of thousands in an instant. But the ideas it killed, the certainty that the world is fundamentally rational, that suffering must mean something, that progress is inevitable, those ideas took much longer to die. In some corners, they still haven't. We're still living in the intellectual aftermath of November 1st, 1755. The fascinating part: most of us have never heard this story told this way. We know the earthquake happened. We might know it killed tens of thousands. But the ripples, the philosophical rupture, the colonial reshaping, those get filed away in academic journals and specialist histories. The hidden story is usually the most important one. And that's what we do here. We pull these threads. We follow the tremors, the literal and the intellectual ones, through history. Because the world-changing events are rarely the ones everyone's already talking about. They're the ones hiding in plain sight, in the margins of textbooks, waiting for someone curious enough to look closer. Subscribe so you don't miss the next forgotten story that reshaped the world.